It's been over a year now since Icon opened, and I just sort of wanted to make quite an in-depth review video on it. So if you don't want to watch an in-depth video, then don't watch this, go watch something else. So if you don't know, Icon's a double launch coaster at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, and it's mainly focused around some quite rapid fire, snappy turns, and the freedom you get in your seats, lots of it, well, fair amount of airtime, and it's supposed to be quite a modern coaster. I think one of the reasons that makes it so good is that the trains are very nice because they're very open and you feel very free. The lap bars are not restrictive at all, which makes it very enjoyable. So I'm just gonna go through the layout and talk about what it feels like and all the different elements. The first launch on the ride isn't the best launch in the world, it's just sort of there to get you up to speed, so when you go into that you should never really expect it to be anything amazing because it's pretty forceless. Although the actual acceleration is quite fast, it just gets to that acceleration quite slow. Although the mist in the tunnel does help the sort of the anticipation when you're going up into it. And then you go up into this big first airtime hill, which does actually give quite a lot of airtime and some ejector depending on where you're sitting. In the front, you get some sudden strong ejector just while you go over the peak of it, which can really take you by surprise if you're not expecting it. But then obviously when you go down you don't get any airtime, and then in the back it's the opposite. You do get some powerful ejector going down it, and it's honestly one of the best parts of the ride. And then you go up to an incline loop sort of thing, which doesn't invert. It's not on that much of an incline. It's an alright element really, it's a little bit forceful. Not the best element in the world, but it's okay. And then you sort of go into this diving turn kind of thing, which leaves you feeling a little bit weightless. Quite a fun little way to get you down into the next two S-turns, which are taken pretty quickly and it's quite snappy in the middle. That part of the ride's quite fun, but it's nothing amazing. The first part of the ride definitely isn't as strong as the second. And then you go around another turn into this barrel roll. Some people call it a 0G roll, but I think it's a barrel roll, which is definitely taken at a very slow speed, which allows you to get lots of hang time. And with these seats that aren't restrictive and the restraint that's just on your lap, it feels amazing going through that at such a slow speed, and you don't get on many other coasters. Then you go through sort of a twisting turn into a little airtime pop, which is quite good actually, down into the second launch, where if the mist's on then that makes it a lot better. You go through the launch, you don't get that much force, but it's just sort of, you do feel yourself speeding up, but it's not that great. And then you go through this element, what's called a junior Imolen. So you go up and you start twisting it out earlier than a normal Imolen, which means that if you're on the front you get lots of hang time while you're sideways. And then if you're on the back seat, especially in the back right, when you go down that element you get really whipped down it and you get some really strong air time. And then you go into a Stengel dive, which is banked at 120 degrees. You go into that and it does feel fun getting rotated around all that way, and it's a nice element. It's one of the highlights of the ride, but it's not that outstanding. Then you go through another turn into this pop of airtime, which is fairly strong, but it's not the strongest. It's not as strong as you can get airtime earlier if you're sitting in the back. And then you go through this helix turn sort of thing, which gives you some sustained strong forces actually. That's probably the most forceful part of the ride, and every time you go on it you do notice that it's kind of forceful. And then you go through this really snappy quick turn in the other direction, which is really fun. And I don't know if it's just the way the laterals feel for me or not, but I kind of felt airtime on that, and I'm not really sure why. So then you go through this kind of forceful turn again, swap directions, and you go into off-axis airtime hill, which going into it looks really fun because you get that sort of thing on lots of RMC coasters. But I mean, it's a good fun part of the ride, I'm glad it's there, but the way it's done, it kind of feels awkward the way you go into it, and the airtime on it's not that strong, so it's not as good as you might think it is, but it's still quite fun nonetheless. Then the ride starts to lose momentum as you go through a turn, swap directions a couple of times and go over the Big Dipper, which that part of the ride's fun because you go over the Big Dipper, nothing special, and then you just sort of glide into the brake run. So now I'm going to go on to the smoothness of the ride. Now the actual track itself makes it a very smooth ride, and also the trains are built very well, so it is a smooth ride. However, like lots of other Mack coasters, it does have quite a bit of a rattle on it, which can be irritating if that kind of thing annoys you, but overall it's really not that bad. It's just sort of there in the background, and you don't need to be worried about how smooth this ride is at all, because it is very smooth. Now the front and the back do give very different rides. As I've said before, the main 2 points where this is going to make a difference are after both the launches on the Airtime Hill and the Junior Immelman. The Airtime Hill, you definitely want to be either at the front or the back, and they're both very good on it, because the front you do get some really sudden ejector, which you really don't expect going up it, and then on the back you do obviously get pulled down the drop pretty hard, which is definitely going to pull you out of your seat a lot. And then on the Immelman, on the front row, you get lots of hang time when you're sideways, and that's definitely very fun. Then on your back, you slow down at the top, but you do get pulled down it really quickly, which is very fun. And then the seats are actually designed to have holes in them so that you get air flowing through to the other rows, which makes it feel a lot better when you're on the rows further back like you're on the front row. In terms of airtime, there's two main moments of airtime, which is obviously the big Airtime Hill and the Airtime Hill after the Stengel dive in the second section. But there's also a few different points, like there's a couple of pops just before you go down into the second launch. As I said, I felt airtime on this turn here. There's also that off-axis airtime moment and the drop down the Junior Immelman. In terms of its flow and pacing, it's a well-paced ride. There's not really that many weak points of it, but the second half is quite a lot better than the first, and there are a few moments where it gets a little slower. In the end of the ride, you do definitely feel like they could have done something more, because it goes around quite slowly, but it is a long ride and it keeps up the pace for quite a while. Second launch could be a bit more powerful to improve that, but it isn't. And then there's how the ride's presented, and I would say theming, but many people like to say it's stylized rather than themed, because it's got this sort of Japanese warrior type feel, and it's kind of decorated but there's no story behind it. It's definitely very well presented, because you've got the cherry blossom trees and the entrance, it's all clean and modern. The station is a bit of a box, but it's nice inside with the mirrors, and the music's blasting around because they got a custom soundtrack for it, which is good. And also the mist really helps with the atmosphere, and it makes the launch look all mysterious. And also it interacts with a lot of the rides behind it, which it's going to do at Blackpool Pleasure Beach, because there's a lot of rides in a very small area. And I think it actually broke the world record for the most interactions on a coaster, which means it has broken a record. It's not a very big one now. And then in terms of the operations, this ride is actually run really well, because the staff in the station, they're almost always running 2 or more trains, and they're very quick with getting them out. It's got the highest throughput of any ride at the Pleasure Beach by a mile, and even when the queue's all the way back to the entrance, then it's still about a 25-minute queue. So the operations on Icon are very good, and the staff do very well to get the trains out as quick as they do. And then the main reason I think Icon's one of the best coasters in the UK is because it's unique, and it has a lot of things that all the other UK roller coasters don't. Like, it probably has more airtime than almost all the roller coasters in the UK, though that isn't saying much because none of them have much airtime anyway. But no other roller coasters in the UK really have the quick transitions or the pacing of Icon, or the kind of modern layout with all these off-axis airtime moments and the Junior Immelman that Icon has. And also the modern free design of the trains is an experience you don't really get anywhere else in the UK. So overall, I think Icon is a very good roller coaster, and there are some things that could be improved, like the launches. Maybe the first part of the ride could be a bit better, but overall it's a very good roller coaster for the UK, very unique for the UK, and even on a global scale it is a very good roller coaster. So thanks for watching my first video with a commentary. I hope you liked it, and if it does well I might do more of these sort of things in the future. And if you agree or disagree, you can feel free to put your opinion in the comments. I'm interested to hear what you think, and I'll see you in the next video.